my real introduction. Hi! Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to make 3 different beautiful tulips in 3 different styles. The first one is a loose and fluid one, and then a brush stroke style, and then a realistic one. When I think about tulips, I think of a spring, I think of rebirth, I think of the colors. There's so many species of tulips that it's almost impossible to say like I love only one color. They come in all the colors. The only color I haven't seen is really like a greenish tulip. I'd love to know if there's a green tulip out there. But tulips can represent rebirth, affection, caring, even I always like to think of them as like a caring or good wishes to somebody. They're just so much fun to paint. And also tulips have become like the symbol of Parkinson's disease. So if you know someone that has Parkinson's and you want to try and just wish them give them some good vibes and well wishes, maybe tulips might be the answer. So anyways, the shape is fun. It's fun to paint with watercolor, and I'm using Kuratake Gansi Tambi Watercolor, which is Japanese watercolor, so it's a little bit more opaque and it's not staining, so perfect for beginners. And let's get started. It's going to be a fun tutorial. And always like my video and subscribe to my channel if you have not, because you're going to be missing out if you don't. Alright, let's get started. Alright, I wet down my water and I'm ready to play. My first tulip card that I'm going to do is just going to have like this really nice energy wash to it. What I mean by energy wash is that it's going to have some color to it, but it's also going to have just a little bit of texture and movement to it. So when I actually paint my tulip loosely, I have something to make happen. So I think I'm going to start with a yellow. That's what I'm hopeful for. I think that'll be nice, and it's going to be a neutral color. So this number 42 in the Kuratake set is going to work. And I'm just going to kind of get my paper kind of wet. This is just to get some pigment on. If you are not a fan of starting with a blank piece of paper, these energy washes are my favorite. I will make these energy washes and then come back and then paint something else on it. I'm just getting it's not flat, it's just it's just a wash with texture. And now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of that orange that I think is more green than orange, and I'm just going to put that on the bottom half because I know that that's going to be where my leaves are going to be, and that's going to kind of help just add a little bit more texture. And I really just want to play with the pigment, and I think I might actually add just a little bit of the green just to pop it up. And I really love this. It's number 54, but I love it because it just gives it the perfect green. I don't know why I love this green, but I do. And I'm just going to do that. And now since I splattered green there, I'm going to do that to the orange too. Oh yes, that's going to be beautiful. And now, I don't know if I really want a whole bunch of green splatters up there, but I feel like tulips have this like beautiful way about them to just kind of show the world, hey, I'm here and it's springtime, and I love tulips. Alright, I think this is about perfect. I'm loving this granulation and the greens and the yellows. This is going to be perfect for my loose tulip card. So I'm going to let that dry. We use some granulation colors, and we just use like a neutral yellow, and you can kind of see the different textures, and it's just looking quite lovely if you ask me. So now we can actually get started painting our tulip. And I know artists that will take like 6 of these card panels and just paint them all like this mainly me. Some other people do, but this is my process. And I actually learned this process from Jean Haynes from reading all of her books. So I definitely recommend learning from a mentor and getting some ideas from them. Okay, so this is going to be more like a bouquet of tulips. And I think the yellows are going to kind of go in like this direction. There's a light green right here, so maybe I'll put some lighter. It might go up and down, and then just, yeah, I kind of want a composition. With a card, you can kind of make, we could also do like an arch maybe. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this space. This space might be like the perfect spot for a sentiment. We'll just see. I'm going to play with my tulips right in here. And this time I'm actually going to just get my brush really full of pigment. And just kind of start playing. Okay. So I like to think of growing my tulips, right? Like so I start with the base and then I work my way up, and I'm just kind of making little leaf shapes almost. I mean, they're going to be tulips. That one needs a little something. And I can already tell that the yellow, this is why I like to use two brushes. I have another round brush. This is an 11. That I'm just going to add some pigment to. I'm going to use that same pink, that really pretty pink that we just had. I'm just going to go in like this. And then I'm going to soften this edge. And this is how you get kind of that loose look. Don't soften it like you put pigment on and then you soften the edge. If you wait too long, it's not going to work the way you want it to. And ooh, that's pretty. So a lot of it is brush handling, and I'll go, that looks like a really pretty tulip. If I do that, I'm going to have to do that to the other side, which is fine. Yeah. I painted something like this, oh my gosh, a couple years ago. I posted it online, and a friend of mine was like, I have to have this. So I sold it to her. I was like, oh, I was gonna, you know, I painted it for for my house, but if you really, really love it, I will sell it to you. And she's like, that's acceptable. So that was a nice memory. So I always like to recreate those memories. Okay. And now with my pink brush, I just want to make sure it's nice and juicy. This is like milk-like consistency. There's no doodling. You're just going with it. Okay. That's going to look a little more orangey than I wanted it to. That's okay. See, this is the reason why I like to not, if you use good quality paper, it won't buckle. And this is 140 pound. And what I'm doing is I don't want it to look too orangey, which is what happened. I don't mind a little bit of orange, but I'm going to kind of soak up what has happened, and now I'm just going to go back in and add either more yellow or more pink. But right now I have to do this just so it can stay vibrant. I want the pink and the yellow. I don't want orange. Okay. I'm going to let that dry. I can go back in with another layer. Let's work on our leaves, on our leaves and on our, and I'm just drawing a line just so I can see kind of where the tulips need. Oh, this is going to be lovely. Okay. Yay. Okay, so I have an image in mind. I did use this beautiful green, and I used some of that granulation. I will probably do a little mixture of both. I'm going to get my leaves started, especially my stems and my leaves. I feel like tulips, the leaves are not always symmetrical, and oftentimes they go way down in the base. And that's probably too uniform, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go in with that orange. And I'm going to cover this part, and I'm just going to splatter. But I don't want the splatter on my tulips. And if it does happen, I can just take a damp, clean brush and just fix it. And that's okay. I think I'm going to have to add a little bit more pink. But really, you can make these pretty fast and just enjoy the process. Okay, there we go. Now I feel like I need some blue. I probably don't, but it's coming. I feel like tulip leaves definitely have this blue, I don't know, quality about them. Now what I don't want to do is follow it all the way up. So I'm just going to give a suggestion that there's a little bit of blue, and this blue that I'm using, it's more like a turquoise, so it's going to go more towards the green side, which is what I'm looking for. And this is a very loose floral, so don't think that it's a like, it's okay if it doesn't look quite right. You just want to add color and depth to it. And I think the Impressionists really, what the Impressionists gave us was a fact to the color aspect, and I just love that. You look at that in Monet and Van Gogh's paintings, and it's just full of surprising color. And if we think about it that way, then we can be like, oh my gosh, you know, I could paint like that. I wanna use my reds and my oranges with my blues just to make color pop. And I really like that turquoise right in here. That's really lovely. I'm gonna leave that alone. And I do need some work in here. This, if I'm gonna do a sentiment, the sentiment is gonna go right up here. And I'm okay with that. It might not, if I do anything, it'll just be happy birthday, but I really kind of like how it's turning out, so I don't know if I will need a sentiment. Okay, and if I do that over here, I'm going to do the same over there. I just needed something to anchor everything. And I know that this is granulation color, so it's going to kind of dry differently, and that's why I'm doing that. Okay, I just wanted to, I'm going to splatter. The rest that's on my brush is getting splattered. That will give me a little bit more texture and keep it loose. Okay, now I got to do something with this flower and this flower and this one and this one, but I got a good start. So again, it's a learning process. So a little more brush work, and I think I'll be all right. So this one, I just need it to look a little bit more thick. So milk-like consistency when you're doing details like this, that will help. And what I mean by milk-like consistency is it's thicker than a wash, but it's not like totally thick, like you can't do anything with it. It's just the nice medium size, like, yeah. Ooh, that turned out pretty. I'm gonna make it more prominent. I'm also going to take my brush that has a little bit of yellow on it, and I'm going to just clean that edge up. And if I did that to this one, then I should probably do the same to this. And this is the part where if you less is more, so you got to know when to stop. And sometimes the stopping part is the hardest. A lot of times I have forgotten, okay, I should have stopped and didn't, and now I wish I had. That's really pretty. I'm just going to let that kind of flow and do its thing. Yeah, I like this where the petal is. I like that yellow. This is turning more into pinky pinks than a yellow tulip, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. Oftentimes when I'm painting, it's just an ebb and flow sort of thing, and these watercolors are so forgiving. That's why I love these for new beginners. So oftentimes I'll have my brush stroke kind of already, but it was just not prominent enough. So then I have to go back in and just, again, I'm cleaning up my edges. So pretty. I love painting tulips. That might get a little muddy. I might have to add some. So I'll have two brushes. One has paint, one is just clean. When I first start out, I'll have like two colors on them. But now that I'm in the detail part of it, I just want two brushes, one clean and one with pigment. This one needs to pop, and I'm gonna have to add some yellow. I also watch to see, I don't want my brush to be drippy when I am softening edges. So there's that too. Okay. This one I'm just going to have to add a swish of yellow right in here. And I think everything else looks okay, but that's looking really good, and I'm really, really happy with how this is turning out. And it really didn't take me too long, and I got to play with my edges. So I say it's a win. I'm going to let this dry again, and we'll come back for the third part of it, the third layer. Well, this is turning out to be a lovely tulip painting. I need a brighter yellow here and some brighter yellows right in here. And I think I need to come back in and just make my green stems a little bit more prominent. And then I think I'm good. So not a whole lot of extra work, just a little bit. And it's fun. I enjoy doing this. So I'm going to just kind of do a little C shape right here. I'm going to add just a yellow bit here. I am being very strategic. I don't want, it looks maybe like I'm not being strategic, but I'm just adding yellow where I think it needs it. Anywhere where it just needs a pop of yellow. And now I'm thinking every flower needs some yellow, and that's probably not true, but here I am popping the yellow. That's all right. This is called pushing your values. When someone says, oh, you need to push your values, this is what we're talking about. We're brightening things up and we're darkening things up. And I'm not going to love that, but that's okay. You can also, if you were worried that you ruined a card or ruined your painting, you can say, well, at least this is not my card. I had a watercolor teacher tell me that, well, it's not my painting, so I guess it's okay. So you can always do that too. Now let's get into a darker green. I need like a dark, dark green. Okay, I have a green and that teal color, that deep blue teal color, and I'm just going to mix them together. I could mix it on the watercolor paper, and I thought about that. What I'm not looking forward to is messing with it too much. So, because I know that I want a darker green, a darker blue-green. What I will do is I will just add, there's a stem. Okay. I feel like for the stem, I usually just do one side, just to give it some depth. Yeah, and I really like that. I'm afraid that if I do much more, I'm going to be wishing that I hadn't. But I do like to just add some brush strokes, because usually we don't know when to stop, right? Okay, and one more. It's probably from behind. Anyways, I really like that. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it dry, and it's done. I'm going to call this done. There's nothing else I can do. Alright, so for like beautiful florals, if you're looking to draw realistic, any kind of flowers, I love this book by Melissa Washburn. She's a wonderful artist, and she gives you step-by-step directions on how to paint. And the book, like, I use this book all the time, but how to draw different florals, and they have they don't have just floral. This is a wonderful book. I just love this book, and I have learned so much from her on design and shape and form. This is drawing is one of the elements in art that really shouldn't be overlooked, and I know as watercolor artists we don't always like to draw, we want to paint, but having a book like this really helps with your watercolor practice. Okay, so I just have this out as a reference. I'm not gonna do a perfect tulip. Probably I could spend hours. This is just to get you an idea of how to draw a tulip. But the book, How to 100 Flowers and Plants Step-by-Step Realistic Line Drawing, is awesome. The Draw Like an Artist book, this series right here. I have this one and the Birds and Butterfly one, and I love that one as well. And so this one has also been a really fun favorite of mine, and I'm learning to draw birds in such a wonderful way. So anyways, I love these books. I often reference them. So let's get started. Alright, so I know that there's an oval, and maybe I want my oval to be bigger than the stem. It's a card, so I'm also thinking, where do I want my sentiment? Do I want a sentiment? I think I'm going to try and put a sentiment either here or here. So that means I need my oval. And when I draw my ovals, I actually make a line like this. A longer line vertical and then a shorter line horizontal. And I try to go in about the middle. It doesn't have to be. And then I know about the size of my oval, and I just kind of connect from like this part to this part, and then from this part to this part, and that really helps me kind of get the oval shape about perfect. Now I see that my flower is just up too high, so I'm taking my kneaded eraser. It's just a simple kneaded eraser, nothing fancy about it. And this is a pencil that was in my office that I recently sharpened. And I do like a sharpened pencil. Alright, so there's my oval. It almost looks like, or there's my guideline for my oval. It almost looks like a cross, but that's okay. And now I'm just going to lightly make an oval, and I see that this is not a perfect curve, so I'm lightly going around it. I am like very lightly, and if I wasn't on camera it would be even lighter, but since it's on camera I'm trying to make it to be about as dark, and I think that's about right. There's probably a little bit curvy-ish. There, okay. Now I can draw my stem. And honestly, the stem is just going to go out. We're actually not going to see. I feel like that should be where the tip of the leaf is. I could be wrong. And they have these beautiful leaves. I think the leaves on tulips are just beautiful. I'm going to do that. And I have an idea on what colors I want. But we'll see how it goes. Alright, so there's the general shape. And now I can go in and see my oval, my tulip is already taking place. Like I know that's the middle, which I don't really want, but that's okay, we'll make it happen. And maybe something like that. I can always erase my lines. Don't always erase all of your lines at once. I like to be able to see my mistakes before I actually commit to erasing. And then I feel like this one could be up like this. And then there's always like this little bud like right here. And then we can do another bud, something like that. So it doesn't have to look exactly like an oval. And maybe I want to try the stem to be just a little bit like this. There, I like that a little bit better. So drawing just takes time. And there's no rush. You should not be in a rush when you're drawing. You should be listening to music and enjoying the process, in my humble opinion. That looks more like it. Usually tulip buds have about 5 or 6 petals. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 petals. There we go. I think that's perfect. And I don't want it to be an ink drawing, so I really can just lay low. So now that I have my kneaded eraser, I always keep it in this hand to warm it up, so it's pliable, especially if it gets really dirty. And now I can just kind of get off any extra graphite, because I don't necessarily need to see the line as much, but you can see it just fine, just the way it is. Yep. Alright, we're ready. Let's paint. And my first decision is, do I want a background? And when I was thinking about, do I want a background for this card, I kind of didn't, but now, of course, that changes. So I will probably do a background. I think I'm going to start with this light blue. I call it like a corn blue. It's just really pretty. And I'm not going to go, this is called like an underpainting. So I'm being very loose with this. And I can go in with the green, that's fine. And I think I want my tulip to be yellow. This is probably going to be a birthday card. I need so many birthday cards. And so I always seem to need them for spring. So it'll be like a yellow tulip, but that'll be my underpainting. It's just a very light wash. Not a whole lot to it. I will zoom in so you guys can see how wash. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. It's a perfect blue wash. Alright, and now, if I was smart, I would let it be, but I'm going to add some of this green since the blue was already wet. And I wanted to get like a vibrant green, but not a bluish green. So I think this number 53 is going to be perfect for that. I call it my spring green because that's really what it is, and it's okay if it moves around in the paper, but we're just going to get some green on. It's going to dry a lot later, And that's what I'm looking for. Okay, now we can let that dry, but because it's pretty dry up here, I'm going to go ahead and just add my yellows. And I'll probably do a mix of like yellow and red, but and I'm going to just paint this whole thing. I am going to try and stay in the lines at this point because I did draw them for a reason. But if it gets a little bit out of the lines, I'm not gonna be sad about that. It's just gonna happen. Okay, and now at this point I do want to just let it dry. There's not a whole lot I can do. I could add more blue to this side just because. And I just love this color. I love how it granulates, and I love how it just kind of does its own thing. So, alright, and watercolor always dries lighter, so I'm constantly adding another layer, but I really want it to be, I want it to look fresh and springy, and this is what this is doing for me. And yes, if it drives you crazy that the paper buckles, you can always tape it down. I don't tape it down, but you could. To me, it drives me crazy to have it taped down. But I guess if it's taped down to a board or something and you can move the board around, I would be alright with that. Okay, we're going to let that be. This is a great start. Alright, this is dried and it really looks nice. I love that little blue tint to it. So let's make this happen. Okay, so at this point I have a couple options. I want to do 3 layers, so I'll probably have to let it dry a little bit and then come back and do a little bit more. But right now we're going to go with it. We're going to start with we're going to start with this really pretty, like, minty green color. I know it's not a perfect tulip, but you'll see what I mean in a second. So there's my little band of this minty green teal, I don't know, it's sea foam. I call it sea foam because that's what it feels like. But then I'm going to go in with this beautiful green. It's not spring green, but I'm going to go right in, maybe not, go right in, get a whole bunch of pigment on this brush. Like, I am really getting a lot in. And that's number 54. I would call it like a viridian green, because that's really kind of what it feels like. And I just want to own this leaf. Oh, so pretty. And then that's going to make way. I'm going to let that dry. And while this is drying, I'm going to go in and play with my tulip a little bit more. And I'm going to add, we're going to go with a brighter red, orange. I probably should get my, and I don't want to get my hand in the green. So that's problem number 1, but I think I'll be alright. Okay. So anywhere there is a line, and I did what I told myself not to do. I think I might just leave it. Problem solving in watercolor. That's alright. I needed a little line of something right down this way, and so that gave me the opportunity to do that. Okay. Now what I want to do is just add this whole orange up to the very top. That's going to be the inside of the tulip. And I can go in even on this side and just really make it a bit pronounced. And then Tip a little bit in there, and we'll keep going on. And now I have this form. I want to get some form in this tulip, so I'm going to go ahead and just make it happen. And then I'm going to clean off this side of the edge again. And this side of the edge again. And now the tulip is starting to take shape. And don't worry, we're going to glaze over this leaf with another color, because this is not the color I want, but I wanted to put this beautiful color on first. Alright, we're going to let this dry, and we're going to come back once it's dry and add some more details. Okay. But we're at a really good start right here. Alright, I got my colors and I'm ready to go. What I want to do is I want to add some of this yellow. We got to build back the yellow up before we can add more of that beautiful orange. So, and that happens. Oh, so pretty. I love adding and building up layers, especially with this paint. And I'm going to go ahead and just do that. Okay, now it's looking like it's glowing a little bit more. And I can go right on in. This is pretty thick, butter-like consistency at this point. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to add to there. This is getting just a little bit of that, and it's probably going to have to let it dry. Now while I let that dry, I can go in with my pretty colors again. My greens. I know how to. And that blue is going to make that green look a little more natural. So it doesn't look blue anymore, it looks more green, like a tulip would. And you can almost, this almost makes me feel like I'm painting with acrylics in my college days. I loved painting in acrylics in college. So when you get it really thick like this, you can almost paint like an acrylic. I think I'm going to add a little bit more of this blue right down in here, because I want the leaf to be behind the stem. And to do that, you just have to add a little bit of blue and a little bit of green to make it look like it's behind the stem. Just like that. And that gives it some depth, and it gives it some really pretty, I like that. Okay. So, I have a couple thoughts. I kind of I might just have to wait for this end. I know I have an idea in my mind and it's just not going. So when that happens, I'm just going to let it dry the way it is, and then when I come back I'm going to get a rigger brush and just draw in the little lines that I made. Now I want some dry brush on these petals right up here, and this petal is dry. This one is almost dry. Maybe by the time I'm done with the dry brush on this petal, this one will be dry enough. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing my, this is a pretty stiff brush. This one isn't as stiff, so wouldn't work as well, but this one's stiffer, and I can kind of like mold it into like what I would call giving it a bad haircut. And I'm just lightly getting my paint onto here, and then I'm going to do this again, and I really am just like really manhandling this board brush. But this is what I want. I want to be able to, and you could probably use a fan brush if you wanted, but I just wanted to give it some of that detail. And this is just called dry brush. And you just kind of go in with the tool, with what I just did, and it will give it some texture. Alright, I still got a dry brush. I am going to add a little bit of pigment to this brush, fan it out a little bit, and I'm going to do the same thing down here and into this petal. There's still pigment on this brush, so I don't want to add pigment. Oh, so pretty. I think I like that, just the way it is. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. But I do need my rigger brush so I can add in the details to the back of that flower. So let me get that. Alright, I'm just going to put some finishing touches on, and I know that this is kind of a problem area, so I'm going to go ahead. It's totally dry, way dry. I don't want to get it wet. So I'm just going to draw in my little, just like that. I'm going to add a little bit more pressure. There. I think that's going to work. Now I'm going to take my stiffer brush. It's a round 10. It's a little bit bigger, but that's okay. And I'm going to try and lift up some of that orange right there. It's really opaque, and the staining, there's not a lot of staining in these pigments, which makes it really nice for beginners. And for me, although I'm not a beginner. There, I'm just going to try and blend that edge just a little bit. Get a clean brush. There. Alright. That looks about right. Woohoo! We're going to call this done. And there we go. Okay, for card number 3, this is just going to be a simple brush stroke yeah, tulip. And I might make 1, I might make 2, I might make 3. I don't know yet, but I definitely know that I'm going to with my long Escoda Versitle tin rigger brush, I'm just going to kind of doodle some water. You can kind of see I have like a petal. You see that? And I'm just going to doodle what I think will work. And that looks like a really pretty tulip, but I think I need at least 1 or 2 more. So we're going to go this way. And they might run into each other. That looks alright. This is just for me to see, do I like this or not? And that one's going to be just kind of there. And then we're going to have stems going like this. So I am definitely doodling with water, and there's nothing wrong with that. Isn't that pretty? Okay, let's get some pigment to it. I'm going to do a pink. So this rose, number 35, I just love these watercolors. And I'm just going to add it to my paper, just like that. Oh, so pretty. If you learn nothing from this lesson, I hope you learn that water goes where water is, and it's that simple. Oh, so pretty. I am going to add a little bit of yellow to the tips. That seems like the right choice. And I'm going to do bright, like cadmium yellow. And this is kind of just a fun way to paint. Tulips are kind of like all different shapes and colors, so I feel like if you're a new artist, you can totally get away with painting tulips, and someone will say, "Oh, is that a poppy?" And all you have to say is, "Yes, isn't it lovely?" They don't need to know that it was supposed to be a tulip. And I do that often. I'm just soaking up the extra water that I don't need on the paper. And it just, like, there's another blob right here. I don't need that. And then we're just going to let that dry. Tulips and flowers, florals especially, in and out. The faster you're in and the faster you're out, the better it's going to be. It's in the details that we can spend a little bit more time. But this is about right. And I'm really actually quite happy with this. Okay, this is probably the most loose tulip, but so pretty. We can just add a couple more details to this. I kind of like the idea of having this just on white watercolor paper, and we got to get our leaves. So we're gonna work on our petals first. And kind of go from there. So you know that it's probably, the tulips are usually darker at the bottom, so that makes it kind of handy. A lot of times, if you just practice with your brushes and you get to know how they work, that is like half the battle for florals. When you can use your brush almost as an extension of your hand, and your brain just does it. It's muscle memory, and that is what you're looking for. I don't think tulips have like a hard edge on any of their so if you see hard edges, meaning this right here, it's a very like that line right there, that's a hard edge. I don't really necessarily want that hard edge, so I'm just gonna dampen it with a soft brush and then wipe away the excess. This is a hard edge kind of, but that's okay because that could be like another petal. This also is a hard edge, and I don't want that. I don't want that hard edge either, so I'm going to go ahead and soften. There we go. And that's going to look quite lovely. I think I'm going to have to let that pink dry, or I'm going to run into that same problem with the orange, and I don't want that. So with this, I'm going to add my spring green. Ooh, pretty spring green. And this is kind of a fun little, I don't know, I could paint these flowers all day. And again, I'm going to get a whole bunch of pigment on my brush. You see how much pigment's on my brush? Maybe these are more crocuses than tulips. I don't know. Really pretty. I am going to add a little bit of yellow, but man, this is sure turning out just gorgeous. I do need a leaf, probably. I will often put a dot right there, and then I'm going to get a full, my brush is full of green beautiful pigment, and now I can just use my brush just like that. Knowing your brush strokes will make all the difference. I love tulips. And now I'm going to go in with that really pretty other green. If it's really dry in your house, you might just have a squirt bottle, but I'm just going to go in and kind of add some tonal value. Not a lot, but a little bit. And I know that the green would be way darker in the bottom, not as much at the top. Something like that. Oh, this is really pretty. And I'm going to just add some of the yellow. I'm just adding some yellow right in here to the tips of the tulips. This one almost looks like it's backlit, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow, and you're just going to have to, and I'll try to explain it the best way that I can. A lot of it is just muscle memory, practicing, and just doing it. And I love watercolor because if you're like, oh, I messed up, you can just erase it with water, right? Like, and that's okay. But here's how I would approach that. Just very delicately. Delicate would be the word I would use. And I really like the freshness of the brush strokes. So I'm trying very hard to keep that freshness. I think a lot of times we think, oh, watercolor artists just kind of do it, but what they don't see is the hours that they spend just doing it. Because I don't think any artist is like, yeah, it just kind of fell off my brush. There is a strategy, and usually it's just their process, and this is my process. Kind of the same thing, but that's going to dry and it's going to look beautiful. Oh, I love this. I'm going to leave it alone. I see I see a couple issues here that you just have to wait until it dries a little bit to find that issue, but there's one issue. And I do this all the time. I don't know. I wish there were artists. If you ever find an artist that just like never has to worry about their puddles, I'd love to know their secret. I don't know that secret. So I just blend it as best as I can. But if I wait till it's completely dry, then I'm usually not happy with it. But that looks better. Alright, I would call this one done. I'm going to let it dry, and then I will maybe put a small happy birthday right in here. I don't know, I really like it. It's hard for me to stamp a sentiment when this could be a piece of artwork. Alright, so I have my my beautiful watercolors that I painted. I have 3 card bases. They come from Tailored Expressions. They're heavyweight A2 card bases, full top, and then Sugar Cube is the name of their paper. And they come like this, and I just fold them into what we call tints, right? Handmade cards are normally made by opening them up instead of over. It's just a way to show that they're handmade instead of like something that you bought at the store. So I'm just folding these. I can also use my bone folder and get a nice crisp fold on it, which is what I recommend. Alright, and there's 2 different ways that I like to mount my watercolors onto the card bases right here. And the first one is that I use a tape glider, or a tape runner is another name for it, and this one is refilled with the Scotch. It's acid free, and so I really like to get a lot on here, so I will often do like a lot. It's a lot, but the watercolor paper really needs it, and I'm okay with that. And it's just glue, but tape runners are different than liquid. And then I would just mount that to the card base, And I will sometimes even varnish it down. And then it's ready to be written in. Or I could stamp a sentiment right in here. I think this might be a wedding card or a birthday card. It could be a birthday card for, I have lots of birthdays in the spring. And then another way that I like to mount is I like to use, this is foam mounting tape. And so what I was going to do is I'll just mount my foam strip. And this just gives it a little bit of thickness to the card. And then I just cut it. And try to cut it. It's pretty sticky, which is nice. You want it to be sticky. I'll just cut it right to the edge if I can. There, and I'll do one more in the middle. It doesn't have to be all the way to the edge. And then you can get, this roll was like 4 times bigger. And I think I got it for like 40 bucks. And it's lasted me for like 5 years. So I'm running low on it, but that's okay. And then it has, I'll just expose the adhesive side. Both sides are, but this is the side that you have to expose the adhesive to. And then, oh, I just love this tulip. It turned out so gorgeous. Just make sure it, and then I will then use this and just, the watercolor's like stuck on the page, so I'm not worried about it going anywhere. There, that's really pretty. Someone would really like that one. It just gives it a thickness that maybe isn't expected. And then I have this one, and I think this one will also just be on regular. I'll just glue it regularly. I really try and pay attention to the edges. But so much fun. Okay. You get the idea. And then last but not least, sometimes now I just have to sign my name. So I always like to do L and then Christensen. And I'll do the same. I just like to, I almost want it to be part of the flower. And this one gets a little bit tricky, but I'll do L. Christensen right there. There. Now I have 3 beautiful tulip cards. And it didn't really take me too long, and I had a lot of fun with that one. And they were all so much fun. Do you have a favorite? I'd love to hear if you did. And happy painting. Alright friends, I'm curious which one you love. Do you have a favorite? Did you have one that you thought was going to be easier and it was actually harder? I'd love to know your thoughts on these cards. They're so much fun. I'm going to make them, I'm going to give them as birthday gifts. I think my friends and family that will receive them will just love them. So I'm excited to share some love and creativity with my people, and I hope you do too. Thanks so much. Enjoy painting.